The Rams have granted their captain linebacker permission to pursue a trade. We got the latest on Ernest Jones, and the Rams cut 12 players. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know. Do you think that the Rams should trade Ernest Jones? Do you think they should keep him? What do you think will happen in this situation? My name is Doug McCain. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, Sports Illustrated, Dodgers Nation, now the Rams 4 Locked On. As always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, the Rams cut 12 players. It was a little bit of a surprise cut. Also, Ernest Jones has been given permission to request a trade. We have the latest on that. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We got some bombs over the weekend. We got cuts. But the top story, Ernest Jones entering the final year of his contract. Apparently, he's not happy about the lack of negotiations regarding his new deal. And because of that, he doesn't want to be a Ram anymore. And that's the report. And the Rams have given him the opportunity to go out there and seek a trade. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the Rams have granted Jones permission to seek a trade. And this is a huge, huge shock right before the season. So we'll kind of get into the back and forth about what the latest details are. But just initially, what's your reaction? Because me, hey, this team is better with Ernest Jones. You're probably not going to get equal value. If they are all in on a Super Bowl this year, you keep Ernest Jones.
It's a really surprising development because a lot of things that typically don't happen with the Rams kind of all happened at once. And let's just kind of say the Rams really don't do drama. They don't have a lot of stuff that's outside of the football that kind of, infects the organization. They're pretty buttoned up with how they run their business. The players are pretty buttoned up with going about getting ready to go. I'll use the example that we talked about last season, that Stetson Bennett was here and then he was just gone. And that was that. Like they don't do drama. They don't do long, protracted stuff. It's just, if there's a problem, they fix it and then they move on. So I think that's what's so unusual about this is right before the season's about to start, you have real drama with one of your more important players, maybe your most important player on the defensive side of the ball. I know that he wants to get paid, but for me, this was just the thing that jumped out at me first was just simply the drama that this will create is something that is very un-Rams-like.
Absolutely. And that's what is the biggest takeaway from this is that the Rams wouldn't go this route if they didn't have a plan in place. And if they didn't think that this was something that would either help the team long-term or that they want to do. Because let's make no mistake about it. Ernest Jones, he is one of the leaders of this team. Outside of Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, I mean, he's incredibly important, not just as a leader with his performance, but he's the captain, man. He is the vocal leader of this team. 145 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 6 pass defense, 6 QB hits in 15 games. All those were career highs, and he has all Pro Bowl level skills, right? So there's no way you're going to get equal value for him this late, 1. And 2, I don't care how good you think Omar Speights is. It's very unlikely that in year 1, he's going to step in and do Ernest Jones things. So it just, to me, indicates that, hey, if you move Ernest Jones, that's a massive piece of the Super Bowl puzzle that you'll be without. So I'd much rather, even if you don't get a deal done with him, I'd rather use him for the rest of the season and let him walk. We know that Lestine does not like to tag guys, hasn't tagged guys since Joyner in a long time. So he doesn't use the tag. So if you're not going to get a deal done still, if you're all in on this team, you keep Ernest Jones, in my opinion.
You hope, and this is kind of what my hope is. You hope this is a negotiating tactic for the player and for the agent, right? That this is something that they've tried to get a deal done by your typical means of negotiation. They can't come to an agreement. They're too far apart where either side maybe feels like, let's just split the difference and kind of go from there. That hopefully this is the agent or the player trying to, turn up the heat a little bit, that he doesn't actually want to go, that this is an attempt to get a new contract, and that they can figure something out and he stays and we all live happily ever after. Because I agree with you. He's incredibly important to what you do. He was the guy that you decided to turn your defense over to. He's the guy that's going to call the plays. He's the guy that's in the middle of everything. You and I talked about it here. The Everydayers will probably remember this. I got a chance to talk to him at camp a few weeks ago, and he looked great. He sounded great. He was motivated. He was ready to go. And then here we are right before the start of the season. You get noise like this. He's got to go play. So the good news is the Rams are going to get good play out of him. If they can't execute a trade between now and whenever, it's not like he's not going to go out there and perform at a high level because he wants to get paid here or somewhere else. So we'll see what that looks like. But yeah, hopefully this is a negotiating tactic and him not actually wanting out of LA. From everything I've heard him say in his career, he likes it here. He's done a really good job here. He was a part of that Super Bowl team a few years ago. So hopefully this is just somebody trying to get a deal done and trying to turn the screws a little bit rather than he's going to be on a new team in a few weeks or months.
Absolutely. And with the roster cuts coming Tuesday, if the Rams are going to trade him, it will likely be in the next week. And you could say maybe this is the Rams doing right by Ernest Jones, knowing that they're not intending to extend him. There were some rumors that there were some negotiations, but also back in March, Les Snead, he did indicate that it was pretty unlikely that they were going to get a deal done. They didn't plan to give him an extension. They were going to let him play out this final year of his rookie contract and then go from there. But the Rams just don't pay big money for linebackers. That's just not what this organization does. But having said that, I think the fact that there were at least some negotiations that took place at some point, you bring up the agent thing. And that was the first thing that crossed my mind is this is an agent who's trying to get top dollar for his client. And then you have Ernest Jones, who yesterday he tweeted out, "I never asked for a trade," with a little shrug emoji. Then he deleted that tweet. So first of all, is he being earnest? And second of all, I think for me, it's kind of one of those things where, no, I never asked for a trade. I never asked for a trade. Oh, no, wait a minute. My agent, he had just informed me that I did, in fact, ask for a trade. I think, so I think that could be in play.
Yeah, it kind of smells like that, right? It kind of feels like that. One of those, hey, if you don't want me, send me somewhere else. And someone probably went, okay. And it's like, whoa, hold on. Are we not negotiating anymore? It may be one of those things that they called his bluff a little bit. Look, you said it a second ago. This is a position that I don't want to say that the Rams don't value, because I think they value all the positions, but this is a position that they've elected not to spend a lot of money on. The Rams pay the guys that they think they need to pay. Think about all the guys that we've seen them take care of over the last several seasons. We saw Aaron Donald get paid, and Matthew Stafford get paid, and Cooper Kupp get paid. Todd Gurley got paid. Jared Goff got paid. Andrew Whitworth got paid. Like, the guys that needed to be taken care of got taken care of. Ernest Jones has not gotten the contract that he's looking for. So I can understand the frustration on his part, but this is how the Rams operate. This is just not something that they place a high priority on, at least as far as getting deals done. I understand both sides of this. I understand why the Rams are deciding that this is not a place that they want to go. And I certainly understand Ernest Jones's desire to get the bag, and whether it's here or somewhere else. I completely get that. I hope it's here. I hope it works out. But I hope you are right. I hope we kind of both read that the same way. Like, is this just a really desperate attempt to try to get a deal done? But that's a dangerous game to play. Say, I'll go somewhere else, because the answer could always be, okay, cool, we'll find a place to send you. It's a big swing.
Yeah, absolutely, Travis. And to your point, the Rams don't do drama. The Rams don't play games. So I wouldn't ever see it as an effective method. It's not like the Rams are going to say, oh, wait a minute, Ernest Jones trying to drag us on social media. Let's get that deal done. Here's a better offer. Rams don't play games like that, and it's not going to happen. So for me, the bottom line is this isn't a situation where it's okay, let's let Van Jefferson go to another team because we don't think he has an opportunity for this team, and let's go out there and let's trade for some late round picks or anything like that. The bottom line for me is this. You're not going to get equal value. So even if you don't extend him, I would much rather just hold on to him and let him walk after this year, because that's a very, very tough hole to fill this late in the game before the season begins. But we're coming up next. We're talking a little more Ernest Jones, and the Rams cut 12 players. One that may come as a surprise to you. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free, right? What are we just talking about here? It's not just finding a guy. Let's say, I don't know, you need a brand new middle linebacker. You're not just looking for a person. You're looking for a middle linebacker. You're looking for somebody that fits your team, and you want to find them fast, and you want to find the right person as quickly as possible. That's why LinkedIn is so important, because it's not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to a perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we are just Kurt Warner, Brock Berlin, Stetson Bennett days away from Rams opening night. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and join that Everyday's Listeners Club. Just watch and listen to every single episode of Locked On Rams, Monday through Friday, and then you won't miss a thing about your favorite team. But here, Travis, second segment, you look at what they could do with Ernest Jones, kind of wrap this Ernest Jones talk up. And look, you could trade him to the Falcons. Of course, there's the connection there with Raheem Morris, and you got Jimmy Lake. I mean, you could trade him to the Packers. I mean, there's teams out there, but like I said in the first segment, the odds of you getting equal value or not, and the question is, what does this mean for this team this season? Where you have Matthew Stafford, that could be his last year, even though I don't think it will be, but the way the contract is structured, they both have outs. Same with Cooper Kupp. So it's going to be a very different Rams season and a very different outlook if you were to trade a win-now piece like a Ernest Jones.
Yeah, and to talk about your point about the value, I think is a really good one. That getting somebody as good as he is at this point it seems unlikely, right? But I think you need to ask yourself a question: if you're Sean McVay, if you're Les Snead, if you're Kevin Demoff, if you're part of the decision-making apparatus inside the Rams, what will Ernest Jones do if he does not get what he wants? Right. That's the question you have to ask yourself. Will he continue to perform at a high level? He's a really good player. Will he continue to be a professional? Will the drama that the Rams clearly do not like follow? Will it become an issue that they can't get away from? If he has a bad game, does somebody start asking questions about, hey, is this have anything to do with your contract? How does he respond to that? They got to get an answer to those sorts of questions, or at least make an educated guess about those sorts of questions, because if in fact they can't get a trade done between now and opening day, or whenever really, will it affect the team on Sunday afternoons? Will it affect the locker room? Will it affect the chemistry of a defense that seems to have a pretty good feel, at least the limited times that we've seen it? These are the things that you have to ask yourself and have to ask him and see what his responses are. Because if it's I want the hell out of here, that is a very different than I would like a new deal, but if you can't get me a new deal, I would like to be traded. And in the meantime, let's go out there and win some football games. They need to take his temperature on that regard to figure out how they want to move forward. Because if it's look, I want to stay here. Let's continue talking. Let's wait. If we can't figure it out, maybe something down the road is a trade. Okay, cool. That we can work with that. But if it's I want out of here, then they're in a really different spot.
Yeah, and there's going to be a major vibe check too at some point, depending on how they're able to overcome this. But yeah, sure, there's other teams out. The Buffalo Bills, they're out. Matt Milano, he has a torn bicep, and we know how the Bills, they value linebackers. The Packers, the Panthers, other teams that need linebackers potentially. But quite frankly, I don't care. I don't care about which teams are interested in a Ernest Jones or could use him as an upgrade, because like I said, I keep saying that they're just not going to get better value for him. And you look at the Jalen Ramsey trade. You trade Jalen Ramsey to the Dolphins for Hunter Long and a third-round pick. I mean, trades like that you're really not impacting your win-now mode mentality, which I think this team really had. I mean, you're talking about a team that is coming off a 10-win season, that is kind of the sleeper pick, kind of the sexy pick kind of heading into this season, a team that maybe has the potential to dethrone the Niners in the division, like I said in the Locked On Rams, Locked On NFC West preview, where I was accused of being biased for the Rams. So, I mean, I don't know what kind of message it sends, but I mean, it feels like to me, at the end of the day, what will occur is he doesn't get traded, one, and that he plays out the rest of the season, and the Rams just hope they get a compensation pick for him, and that Omar Speights develops into that guy.
Look, if you could snap your fingers and that's what ultimately happens, I think the Rams would take that, assuming that he has the season that you would expect to have from Ernest Jones. One thing that we haven't talked about how this affects the team is Chris Shula's first year DC. Now, this is he already had to come in and redo a defense that didn't have Aaron Donald. He already had to come in and replace Raheem Morris, who was universally liked and respected and is now head coach in the league. Now, all of a sudden, what are we? You said 13 days away from the start of the season, and is arguably the most important player on his defense says, oh, by the way, I'd like to leave. I mean, that's a lot on that's a lot on any coach's plate. That's a lot on a new coach's plate, to be sure. And if, in fact, they do accommodate him, if, in fact, they can find a way to trade him, what does that do for Chris Shula trying to redevelop his defense or put a new player in there and maybe not nearly as experienced of a player? There's a whole wrinkle to that, too, that we really, haven't considered, because this is so new and so quick and so short or so close to the beginning of the season that, I'm sure, the best guys have plan Bs all the time. They got plan Bs and Cs and Ds and Es all the way down. You wonder if there was a plan B if Ernest Jones raised his hand and said, I don't want to be here anymore, because that's just what happened.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'm not saying that Chris Shula is making player personnel decisions. We know that is not where he is best optimized. That's above his pay grade at this point. But I guarantee you they've at least had the conversation with him about life after Ernest Jones' impact in this defense, what he's seen from Omar Speights. He definitely is factoring in to this overall picture. And yeah, as you mentioned, is a captain. He's got the C on his chest. And you're already trying to fill Aaron Donald's shoes. Now, losing Ernest Jones, it would be a massive blow. I mean, if you look at some of these rankings of the Rams defenses, and we know how the national media got this team wrong last year, but they're consistently ranked either in the bottom 5. Some people have them as ranked last. And I know the kind of talent they have and the potential they have, and it's tough to really evaluate this defense without seeing them without the Aaron Donald effect and how these rookies will perform. But, I mean, can you imagine these rankings without Ernest Jones, what they look like heading into this season? And as good as this Rams offense is going to be, I think they're going to average close to 30 points, potentially over it. It'd be just a massive, massive blow. I can't understate that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And you were kind of going where I think it's important. This puts pressure on the offense, too. If, in fact, he leaves, if, in fact, he's traded to another team, and like you've mentioned, and I agree with you, if you're not getting, value for value, if all of a sudden you're elevating a backup, you're getting somebody that's new to the system or whatever it may be, well, the defense probably just got a little bit less than, right? Maybe a little bit worse, which means, all right, we got to find a way to score more points. We got to find a way to maybe press a little bit more than you might not want to. This has ripples on the pond across just about everything. And I think maybe at the top of the list, too, is leadership. He was a guy that was very well respected in the defensive room, on the team as a whole. He's a guy that's been around. He's won. This is a guy that they had plans for. And now all of a sudden that he, potentially wants out could change the chemistry of a million different things.
Yeah, in some ways, you almost kind of feel a little bad for Ernest Jones, because it boils down to the fact that if you want a deal done, if you want an extension done as a linebacker, this is one of the wrong franchises to be on, one of the wrong teams and organizations to be on, because that's just not what they do. They're going to spread those resources into other positions. But like you said, I think you brought up the best point, is if you keep him, and even if you have a disgruntled Ernest Jones, hey, it's a business, and you got to focus on production. If you want that in every single snap, every single play, every single game, is going to either increase or decrease his value. So you could get kind of a version of Ernest Jones that he's going to just kind of put everything aside and he's going to focus on the big picture. And that's what you want. I think just kind of seeing his interview with you, seeing how he deals with the media, I think that you would get a professional version of Ernest Jones either way. I don't think he's a player that would let that bleed into everything he does.
I agree with you. That's the sense that I get from him as well. There's somebody that, can put the business side over there, at least for on Sunday afternoons for a few hours and go out there and do what he needs to do. But I mean, we're all human beings, right? And we all have feelings and we all have wants and desires. And if he wants something and he knows that they're not going to give it to him, or he thinks they're not going to give it to him, who knows how that affects you? That could manifest in 100 different ways.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we'll keep you updated on this. Tomorrow, I'm sure we'll get some more news, some more clarity, especially with the cuts from other teams and who could be available and teams needing to fill that position. But coming up next, the Rams, they've already begun to make their cuts and a surprise cut. We're going to get into that. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, right? FanDuel is super fun. There's a million things you can do on FanDuel, whether it's baseball, basketball, football. FanDuel gets amazing once we get into football season. It's America's number one sports book for all the reasons that you know. But we've got something a little bit different for you right now, because now through September 22nd, so just a little bit less from a month from right now, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's right. You heard me right. Bet $5 and you can get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. You heard me right. Every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. But you got to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's number one sportsbook.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so Travis, the Rams have until 4 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday to cut down their roster to 53 players. You're going to see cuts from the last preseason game up until now. You might see some today, tomorrow, but we have our first real chunk of players that were cut. So the Rams have cut 12 players so far: J.J. Lott, Blake Larson, Alex Lindstrom, Cam McCutcheon, SaRodorick Thompson, Dresser Wynn. The Rams, they pretty much carry 2 quarterbacks, and then Jimmy G is going to be back in week 3. So, yeah, that was not too big of a surprise. Wynn's performance on Saturday, it's kind of a foregone conclusion at this point, but any thoughts on Wynn not making it?
Well, no, not really. I think once you saw Stetson Bennett not play on Saturday morning against the Texans, you knew that he was going to be the second quarterback. Not that Dresser Wynn really had an opportunity to usurp him, but the Rams clearly felt like they've seen enough to at least cross your fingers and hope that Matthew Stafford gets through the first 2 games that Stetson Bennett's going to go. Dresser Wynn never really felt like a potential option to be number 2. It felt more like it was either going to be Stetson Bennett or somebody that wasn't with the team at the moment, so that they let him go really, I don't think, surprised too many people.
Yeah, absolutely. Then Matt Caskey, Oshwan Mathis, a little bit of a surprise. They were high on him. He's really turned out to just not be that guy that they had hoped he would be. Nick Hampton, he's been pretty solid, but Oshwan Mathis, he's gone. Then Grant Miller. Then you got Fatukasi. And then Boston Scott, I think of all of them, is probably the one that surprises a lot of Rams fans, to think, because you thought maybe they would keep 4 running backs on the roster, what he could potentially do on special teams. And when you look at the depth on the offensive line that they're going to need, we look at the fact that they're probably going to take 6-7 wide receivers. And you're also going to take a ton of safeties. You mentioned Chris Shula. He needs safeties in that scheme, so you're going to be a little low at that position. Looks like the Rams are going to take 3 running backs, and it's not going to be Boston Scott or Zach Evans. You're going to see Kyron Williams, Blake Corum and Ronnie Rivers.
Yeah, this is one, like you said, this becomes a numbers, and their roster construction is going to be a little weird for the first couple of weeks because Jimmy G doesn't take one of those roster spots. You've got Alaric Jackson who doesn't take one of those roster spots because of the suspension. So it's going to be constructed a little bit unusually, but you're right, Doug. I think that they clearly feel like Kyren Williams, Blake Corum, and Ronnie Rivers give them what they need. They clearly feel like they have what they need on special teams in other places, whether that's Tutu or Jordan Whittington or whoever that might be. But I agree with you. I thought that Boston Scott was the name that kind of jumped off the page at you right there. I thought he would probably make the team, and no way.
Yeah, and when you look at Scott, he has 4 seasons, so he's not subject to the waiver claim process, so he can negotiate with any NFL team. I think it's pretty unlikely he'll be on the practice squad. He'll probably try to catch on somewhere else. But yeah, I think for me, when I look at this too, I look at the fact that, hey, Xavier Smith, he's taking steps in the right direction during preseason. He has that kind of speed you can't teach. And then with Tutu Atwell getting opportunity on special teams, hey, at the very least, between those two, we'll see if they can break tackles and how physical they can be and if they can take advantage of these new rules. But you are going to have one of the fastest special team return units in the NFL.
If they kick to him, right? The more I watch these rules, the more I'm convinced everybody's just going to kick it out of the end zone and start at the 30. The coaches hate risk, and letting a guy catch one and try to pop, it's risky. I think that, like, if people start scoring a bunch of touchdowns starting at the 30, then maybe they'll try to pin them in a little bit deeper. But we know that coaches hate risk. They hate uncertainty, and there's nothing uncertain about, all right, 1st and 10 from the 30, let's go from there. I think most coaches are going to take that option.
For sure. And yeah, and Boston Scott, now the Rams, a guy named Boston in Los Angeles, you know what I'm saying? Like, odds were stacked against him to begin with, but you also have Carlos Watkins that didn't make it as well. But we're going to keep you guys up to date on all the cuts, the roster construction. We are really down to the wire here. Season is fast approaching. We'll see what happens with Ernest Jones, but lots happening about your Los Angeles Rams. On tomorrow's show, we got some more winners and losers from the last preseason game. We're going to take a look at the 53-man roster. Stetson Bennett named the backup quarterback for the first 2 games. So tons of news for your Los Angeles Rams. You don't want to miss a thing, so stay locked on. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.